If your grocery bill feels heavier in 2026, you are not imagining it. And if you have been trying every grocery hack you can find, you are not foolish either. That is exactly what people do when the system starts getting harder to read. The problem is that a lot of the advice floating around sounds smart, but only some of it actually protects your money. Some hacks lower the bill. Some just move the cost around. And some quietly fail once you count time, fuel, storage, spoilage, and the extra trips nobody puts in the headline. That is what this video is really about. Not saving money in some vague lifestyle sense. Protecting your household cash by separating real savings from fake savings. Because once you see the difference, grocery shopping gets a lot less confusing. Here is the first truth most people miss. A grocery hack is not a savings strategy just because it feels disciplined. It only counts if it lowers what you pay per meal, per trip, or per week. If it does not do that, it may be a habit. It may be a preference. It may even be convenient. But it is not automatically savings, and that matters, because food spending has become one of the easiest places for money to leak out without anyone noticing. The price on the shelf is only part of the story. The real bill includes the way you shop, how often you go, what spoils, what gets duplicated, and how much of your food routine is built around convenience instead of control. So let's start with the hacks that usually work right away. Meal planning before you shop is still one of the strongest money protectors available. Not because it is trendy, because it cuts down on 3 expensive problems at once. It reduces impulse buying, it reduces duplicate purchases, and it reduces the chance that you buy ingredients for a meal you never end up making. A plan does not have to be complicated. In fact, the simpler it is, the better it usually works. A short list of repeat meals can be more powerful than a perfect menu. There is a reason people feel calmer when they shop with a list. A list gives your money boundaries. Without one, every aisle becomes a negotiation. Every special becomes a temptation. Every extra item feels small in the moment. But small extras are how a grocery bill grows teeth. Shopping while hungry is another old warning that still matters in 2026. It sounds almost too simple to mention, but it keeps proving itself because hunger changes judgment. People buy snack food they did not plan for. They buy more convenience food. They buy backup items just in case. None of that feels dramatic at the register. But over a month, those unplanned add-ons become real money. The fix is not perfection. It is timing. If you can shop after a meal, or at least not on an empty stomach, you protect your cart from your appetite. Unit pricing is another one that actually helps, and it helps more than many people realize. A package can look cheaper and still cost more per ounce or per pound. Stores know this. Packaging is designed to confuse the eye just enough that a bigger box can feel like a better value even when it is not. The shelf tag is where the truth usually lives. When you compare unit price, you stop shopping by emotion and start shopping by math. That same logic applies to store brands. Sometimes the store brand is very close to the name brand and costs less. Sometimes it is the smarter buy. But that does not mean every store brand is identical to every name brand. Formulas and quality can differ by product. The useful habit is not blind loyalty. It is controlled testing. If a cheaper version works for your household, that is a real savings. If it does not, then the lower sticker price may not be the lower cost. Grocery pickup can also be a genuine money protector for some households. Not because it makes food cheaper on the shelf, but because it reduces the temptation to wander. If you are prone to grabbing extras in the aisle, ordering ahead can tighten the spending pattern. You choose what goes in the cart before you enter the store. That can be powerful. But it only helps if the pickup system is actually available, reliable, and not loading on fees or substitution problems that erase the benefit. In other words, it is useful when it keeps your plan intact. Weekly ad shopping and markdown racks still matter too. Discount stickers, reduced price bread, clearance meat, and short-dated items can create real value if you can use them quickly and safely. But the key word there is use. A markdown is only a bargain if it gets eaten. Otherwise, the discount just becomes a more affordable form of waste. And that brings us to the second category, the hacks that look smart, but only work if your household has the right setup. Bulk buying is the classic example. It can save money. It can also waste money very fast. The savings only appear if you already know the item will be used before it goes stale, breaks down, or gets forgotten. Bulk is not a strategy. It is a condition. You need storage space. You need a use plan. You need enough household stability that the item will actually rotate through the kitchen instead of sitting there like a promise. People often buy in bulk because the unit price looks lower. That part can be true. But if half of it expires, if the pantry gets too crowded to manage, or if the item is only used once in a while, then the lower unit price becomes a fake win. Cheap food that sits untouched is not cheap. It is deferred waste. The same is true of doubling recipes and freezing half. For some households, that is one of the smartest things you can do. It creates future meals from one cooking session. It protects you from last-minute takeout. It smooths out the week. But it only works when the freezer space exists, the containers are labeled, and the household actually eats leftovers in a rhythm that makes sense. If your family gets bored with repeated meals, or if the freezer becomes a graveyard of mystery containers, then the savings disappear into clutter. Batch cooking can be a quiet money saver, but it is not magical. It works best when your life is predictable enough to use what you prepared. If your schedule changes constantly, or if the same meals start getting ignored after 2 days, then the food you cooked for savings starts turning into food you forgot to eat. That is not a discipline problem, it is a household fit problem. Convenience food sits in this same middle zone. Pre-cut vegetables, washed fruit cups, prepared sides, and ready-to-eat items are often more expensive. Sometimes that extra cost is worth it. If it keeps you from ordering takeout, if it helps an exhausted caregiver get dinner on the table, or if it prevents fresh food from spoiling because cutting and washing would be too much, then convenience can be a practical trade-off. But it is usually not a bargain. It is a labor purchase. You are paying extra to reduce time and effort. That is not shameful. It is just important to name correctly. If you think you are saving money when you are actually buying time, you will never understand where the grocery bill is really going. Now let's talk about what waste is really costing you, because this is where a lot of household budgets are quietly leaking. Food thrown away is money lost twice. You paid for it once at the store. Then you paid again when you did not get any meal value from it. That is why waste is not a side issue. It is one of the biggest hidden grocery expenses in the home. And waste does not only mean spoiled food. It also means the produce that was bought with good intentions and never got washed. It means the leftovers that disappeared into the back of the fridge. It means the bread that went stale because the household already had another loaf somewhere. It means the bulk package that seemed smart until nobody remembered it was there. A lot of grocery protection is really just waste prevention in disguise. That is why freezing, labeling, and rotation matter so much. A freezer is not only storage, it is a money preservation tool. But only if you can see what is in it. Containers need dates. Bags need labels. Items need to be rotated so the oldest food gets used first. Without that, the freezer becomes a vault you can no longer access. And food you cannot identify is food you are more likely to throw away. The refrigerator works the same way. When people organize leftovers and put older items in front, they are not being fussy. They are protecting value. A simple leftover system can save more money than a dozen fancy hacks because it stops the slow loss of food you already paid for. Even produce storage matters more than most people think. Some fruits and vegetables spoil faster because of how they are handled after purchase. If you wash berries and store them properly, if you keep greens dry, if you do not let certain items sit where they will go bad before you use them, you turn fragile food into usable meals. That is real savings. Not because the food is glamorous, because you actually eat what you bought. Now let's move into a category that helps people the most when the budget gets tight. Protein and pantry tactics that stretch the bill. Meat is often the line item that makes people feel grocery pressure the fastest. It is also one of the easiest places to use discipline without feeling deprived. Smaller portions can work better than people expect, especially when the meal has enough volume from other ingredients. Beans, lentils, potatoes, Rice, pasta, and soups can help stretch a meal without making it feel empty. This is not about pretending a tiny amount of meat is the same as a full portion. It is about being strategic. A skillet with ground meat and beans can feed more people than meat alone. A soup with potatoes and lentils can become a solid dinner instead of an expensive protein-heavy plate. A roast chicken can become several meals if it is planned that way instead of treated as one night only. Frozen fruits and vegetables deserve more respect too. In some households, frozen produce is the better value because it does not spoil as fast and it is often already cleaned and ready to use. That means less waste, less prep, and fewer emergency trips when fresh produce goes bad before dinner. Fresh is not always best if fresh means throwing half of it away. And this is where date labels become important. Best by dates are not the same thing as automatic trash dates. Many people throw food away early because they misunderstand the label. That does not mean ignore safety. It means do not waste good food just because the date on the package made you nervous. Use common sense, check the food itself, and follow safe storage guidance for your area. But do not let fear turn edible food into unnecessary loss. Let me pause here with a reset, because this is the question that clears up most of the confusion. Is it actually frugal? Not does it sound frugal. Not does it look disciplined. Not does it make a good video or a satisfying social media post. Does it save money after time, fuel, spoilage, storage, and equipment are counted? That is the real consumer test. If a hack creates more trips, it may cost more in gas and time. If it creates more waste, it is not saving money. If it needs special containers, extra freezer space, or a lifestyle that your household does not really have, then it may not be a system. It may be a fantasy version of savings. And there is no shame in that. The goal is not to live perfectly. The goal is to stop paying extra for habits that only look efficient from a distance. So when you hear a grocery tip now, run it through that filter. Per meal, per trip, per week. If it does not lower one of those, it is probably just a trade-off. That leads us into the hacks that fail quietly, because these are the ones that often hurt people while still feeling responsible. Buying bulk without a use plan is one of the biggest traps. The package is big. The per-unit price is lower. It feels like you beat the store. Then the food sits there. Or it pushes out other items. Or you discover you do not actually use that ingredient often enough to justify the larger buy. The money was not saved. It was parked in your pantry and then slowly lost. Overbuying because something is on sale is another common trap. A sale is not a savings event unless you were already going to buy that item. If you were not, then the sale encouraged extra spending, not better spending. This is especially true with snack food, drinks, breakfast items, and just-in-case purchases. A low price on a product you did not need is still a cost. That problem gets worse when every store trip becomes a stock-up event. Some people tell themselves they are being efficient by buying a little more every time they go out. But if that leads to duplicate items, cluttered shelves, forgotten food, and higher average spending, it is not efficiency. It is drift. And drift is expensive because it never feels like a decision. It feels like normal life. There is also a blind spot many households have. They focus hard on grocery deals, but lose money in the margins. Restaurant drinks, convenient snacks, extra coffee stops, app delivery fees. The little purchases outside the grocery aisle can make the savings inside the grocery aisle disappear. That is why the real consumer protection mindset looks at the whole food system, not just the supermarket receipt. If your household spends carefully in the store, but leaks money through add-ons outside the store, your grocery hacks will always feel weaker than they should. Not because you failed, because the system is bigger than one aisle. A lot of the pressure comes from convenience culture itself. The modern food environment keeps offering ways to pay more to think less. That is not a moral failure, it is a business model. Stores, apps, prepared foods, and front-of-store displays are all designed to make it easier to spend before you fully evaluate. So the job is not to become paranoid. The job is to become aware. And awareness is something you can build. Here is the simplest grocery system I know that actually holds up for real households. Start with a weekly food budget. not a vague hope, a number. When you know the ceiling, every shopping decision gets easier. You do not need to feel guilty about each item. You just need to keep the total in range. Next, keep a short list of meals that are cheap, familiar, and reliable. Not every dinner has to be exciting. The goal is consistency. A few repeat meals lower stress, reduce waste, and make shopping faster because you know what ingredients actually get used. Then set one day for leftovers. That one habit can turn the back of the fridge from a lost zone into a useful part of your food system. It does not have to be a strict ritual. It just has to be regular enough that food gets a second chance instead of being forgotten. Learn when your stores mark things down. That timing varies by retailer and location, so this is not about one universal rule. It is about observation. If your store tends to discount bread at a certain time or puts out reduced meat on a certain day, that knowledge is worth money. It turns shopping into a planned move instead of a lucky guess. And finally, keep your system simple enough to repeat. That is where real savings live. Not in perfect behavior, in repeatable behavior. Because this is the full pattern. The grocery hacks that still work in 2026 are the ones that increase control. Meal planning, lists, unit prices, store brands when they fit, pickup when it blocks impulse spending, markdown shopping when you can actually use what you buy, freezing and labeling, leftovers, pantry rotation, simple repeat meals. These all help because they reduce waste or reduce unnecessary spending. The hacks that only work for certain households are the ones that depend on space, time, or routine. Bulk buying, batch cooking, doubling recipes, convenience items. These can be smart, but only if they fit your actual life. If they do not, they can quietly cost more than they save. And the hacks that fail are the ones that look disciplined but create hidden costs. Buying too much on sale, treating every trip like a stock-up mission, ignoring spoilage, forgetting freezer limits, letting small add-on purchases erase your grocery discipline. Once you see that structure, grocery shopping stops feeling like a random test of willpower. It becomes a system you can read. That is the real protection here. Not squeezing your life into a perfect budget fantasy. Not punishing yourself for every convenience purchase. Just knowing where money leaks and closing the leaks that matter most. So the next time a grocery hack crosses your screen, ask one question before you believe it. Does it save money per meal, per trip, or per week? If the answer is no, then it is not really a savings hack. It is just a trade-off. And if you want, keep this video in mind the next time you are standing in the aisle, looking at a sale that seems too good to pass up. That moment is where consumer control begins.